I'm a complete fucking idiot, right? Someone please tell me I am, because I'm standing in the middle of our apartment and the silence is so loud it's making my ears ring. Eli's gone. His half of the closet is just a void of empty hangers. That ridiculously oversized espresso machine he bought, the one I always complained about, gone. His favorite worn-out hoodie isn't slung over the chair anymore. In the little ceramic bowl by the door, where our keys used to get all tangled up, there's just my lonely set. There was no screaming match, no throwing plates. He just packed his things while I was at work and vanished. And the sickest part, the part that's clawing its way up my throat, is that I know I deserve this. Every single empty, silent inch of it. Just a week ago, God, was it only a week? I was supposed to be the happiest woman alive. It was the kind of week you see in cheesy rom-coms, the kind I used to roll my eyes at so hard I thought they'd get stuck. The air between Eli and me was thick with something sweet and unspoken. He was just extra. It's the only word for it. He'd show up after my yoga class with my favorite everything bagel from that tiny, overpriced place across town, toasted just right with way too much cream cheese for no reason at all. "Just thought you might be hungry," he'd say with that easy, genuine smile that always made my stomach do a little flip. He started hugging me from behind while I was doing the dishes, burying his face in my hair and murmuring things about our future and making it official. It wasn't direct, you know. It was all these little feelers. He'd ask about my dream vacation, but then add, "For a honeymoon, I mean, hypothetically." He started talking about dog breeds, asking if I was a golden retriever person or a scruffy mutt person, because he had this whole fantasy of us walking a dog in a park on a Sunday morning. He was humming all the time, this happy little off-key tune that was starting to get stuck in my head. My friends weren't helping either. It was like they were all in on it, a conspiracy of happiness. My best friend, Sasha, met me for brunch and spent the whole time giving me these knowing little smiles. "So," she said, stirring her latte with an obnoxious amount of purpose, "any big plans for the weekend? Anything shiny on the horizon?" She wiggled her eyebrows. I tried to play it cool, but she just laughed. "Don't play dumb with me, Lilia. He's got that look. The I'm about to spend a stupid amount of money on a tiny rock look." Later that day, another friend, Maya, texted me a picture of a diamond ring with the caption, "Just saying winking face." I was 100 certain he was going to propose. I'd spent hours in front of the mirror when he was out, practicing my surprised but not too surprised face. I'd whisper yes to my reflection, but it sounded weird, like a word in a foreign language. Then I'd try a more enthusiastic, of course, yes, and cringe at myself. I imagined the ring, probably something simple and elegant because he knew I hated flashy things. I imagined the way he'd get down on one knee, probably awkwardly, maybe knocking something over, because that was just so him. I had it all mapped out. I was on the verge of getting everything I ever said I wanted. A good, kind, stable man who loved me more than anything. A life that felt safe and warm and predictable. It was perfect. Terrifyingly, suffocatingly perfect. You see, Eli's love was like a warm blanket. It was steady, reliable, and safe. And it was making me want to claw my own skin off. I know, that sounds insane. Why would anyone run from that? He never raised his voice. He remembered the name of my childhood pet. He listened, really listened, when I talked. But my last relationship with Dean wasn't a warm blanket. It was a fucking forest fire. It was screaming matches at 2 a.m. over a misinterpreted text message, followed by desperate, tear-filled makeup sex that felt more like a surrender than an act of love. It was the constant, gnawing anxiety of checking his phone when he was in the shower, my heart pounding in my chest, looking for a name I didn't recognize. Spoiler alert, I always found one. It was a toxic, chaotic, high-stakes mess, and for some sick, twisted reason, my brain had coded that chaos as passion. That adrenaline rush of fighting and making up. I mistook it for proof that we cared. Eli's calm felt like a personal accusation. His stability made me feel like an imposter, a fraud who had somehow tricked this wonderful man into loving her. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for him to see the real me and realize I was just as broken and messy as Dean had always told me I was. Dean used to say, "You love the drama, Lilia, you're just like me." And with Eli, there was no drama, there was just contentment. This peaceful, adult relationship felt unearned. It felt like I was wearing clothes that were too nice for me. And that's when the tiny, ugly little voice in the back of my head started whispering. It started as a faint hum and grew into a roar. It told me that this couldn't be real. It was too easy. The voice said I needed a control group, a point of comparison. How do you know this is good if you don't remember how bad the bad was? It hissed. I needed to touch the fire again, just for a second, to really appreciate the blanket. I had to know for sure. I convinced myself it wasn't self-sabotage. No, it was a scientific experiment. A test. I just needed to see if the old poison still had any effect, just to be sure that what I had with Eli was the real cure. It was the most logical, rational, and completely batshit crazy idea I've ever had. And I listened to it. God, I actually listened. So, fueled by this insane, pseudoscientific justification, I did it. I picked up my phone, my thumb hovering over the Instagram app for what felt like an eternity. My heart was pounding, not with excitement, but with a kind of dreadful, clinical curiosity. It felt like I was about to intentionally touch a hot stove just to confirm that, yes, it still burns. I typed his name into the search bar. Dean. Just seeing the letters of his name pop up felt like a small betrayal, a crack in the foundation I had so carefully built with Eli. I hit follow. It was almost instantaneous. I swear, it couldn't have been more than 30 seconds. Before I could even second-guess myself, a message notification lit up my screen. It was him. Well, look what the cat dragged in. Miss me. The words were so predictable, so quintessentially Dean. Cocky, a little bit sleazy, but undeniably familiar. It was like hearing a terrible pop song you haven't heard in years. You hate it, but you know every single word. We exchanged a few messages, a dance of witty banter that felt like slipping on a pair of old, uncomfortable shoes. Every word I typed felt like a lie. He suggested we get a drink. For old time's sake, he typed, adding a winky face emoji that made my stomach churn. A proper goodbye we never had. I told myself it would be harmless. Just one drink. I would see him, confirm he was still the same asshole, and go home to Eli feeling smug and validated. I told Eli I was meeting up with Sasha for a girls' night. The lie slid out of my mouth so easily it scared me. He just kissed my forehead and said, "Okay, babe, have fun. Don't stay out too late." The trust in his eyes was like a physical weight. Sitting across from Dean in that dimly lit bar felt surreal. He looked the same, that same smirk, the same way he leaned in just a little too close when he talked, invading your personal space so you felt both trapped and captivated. The conversation was a highlight reel of our toxic past, framed as fond memories. Remember that time we almost got kicked out of that hotel in Vegas? He'd laugh, and I'd laugh too, conveniently forgetting that the reason we almost got kicked out was because he'd started a screaming match with me in the hallway for talking to the bartender. He was charming, magnetic, and completely full of shit. And I knew it. I saw every red flag, every manipulation tactic. I was watching the whole thing happen from a distance, like I was a passenger in my own body, a scientist observing a lab rat. A very, very stupid lab rat. And then he said it, putting his hand over mine on the table. "Let's get out of here." And the passenger in my body stood up and followed him. We walked to his apartment, the same one where I'd cried myself to sleep more times than I could count. The whole time, a sane part of my brain was screaming, "What are you doing? Lilia, turn around. Go home to Eli. Go home. This is the point of no return." But I didn't listen. I walked right through the door. Afterwards, lying in his bed, staring at a crack in his ceiling I remembered all too well, there was no passion. No nostalgic spark. No confirmation of anything. Just a profound, nauseating emptiness. My experiment had yielded its results. It proved nothing except that I was capable of destroying the best thing in my life for absolutely no reason at all. I had touched the fire, and all I got was dirty. I felt hollowed out, cheap. The silence in his apartment was broken only by the sound of traffic outside, and all I could think about was Eli, probably at home, watching our favorite show, completely unaware that I had just detonated a bomb in the middle of our lives. Getting home was a blur. I felt like a ghost, walking through the front door of the life I had just torched. The apartment smelled like the garlic bread Eli had made for dinner. The TV was on low, some documentary about penguins. It was all so normal, so domestic, it made my skin crawl. He was on the couch, laptop open, but he looked up the second I came in. He smiled that warm, easy smile of his. "Hey, you're back. How was Sasha? Did you guys solve all the world's problems?" The guilt was a physical thing. It was a lead weight in my stomach, a thick film in my throat making it hard to breathe. I couldn't look at him. I couldn't stand there, under the warmth of his gaze, knowing what I'd just done. The lie was too heavy to carry for another second. It felt like if I didn't say it, it would crawl out of my mouth on its own. I needed it out. I needed the judgment, the punishment, whatever it was to start. So I just broke. "I wasn't with Sasha," I mumbled, my eyes fixed on a loose thread on the rug. My voice came out as a croak. He closed his laptop slowly. The soft click echoed in the suddenly silent room. The penguins on the TV were waddling across the ice, oblivious. "Oh, okay. Where were you?" His tone was still light, curious. He had no reason to suspect anything. I took a breath, and the words just spilled out, cold and ugly. "I saw Dean." I paused, hoping he'd interrupt, hoping he'd get angry, but he just waited. I went back to his apartment. Eli, it was a huge mistake. A stupid, horrible mistake. I tried to make my voice sound as regretful as possible, but it just sounded pathetic and weak, like a child making a flimsy excuse. I was trying to soften the blow, to manage his reaction, but there's no way to soften a sledgehammer. I braced myself for the explosion. For the yelling, for him to throw something, to ask me how I could do this to him, to us. I deserved all of it, but it never came. He just got very, very still. He stared at me, and his face, which was usually so open and expressive, became a complete blank. The warmth drained from his eyes, replaced by something I'd never seen before, not anger but a deep, chilling disappointment. It was like watching a light go out. "Why?" he asked. His voice was quiet, almost a whisper, but it cut through me like a knife. "I don't know," I stammered, which was the honest, pathetic truth. I was scared. Things were so good, and I think I needed to prove to myself how good it was. It was a test. A stupid test. "A test," he repeated, the word flat dead. "Did we pass?" "No. God, no. It meant nothing." "It was just to prove to myself that it meant nothing," I pleaded, hearing the desperation in my own voice. He just looked at me, and in his eyes, I could see him replaying every moment of the past week, every sweet gesture, every conversation about the future, and recasting it all in the light of this new, ugly truth. My pathetic, rambling explanation hung in the air between us, and even I could hear how hollow and utterly selfish it sounded. He wasn't just hearing about Dean. He was realizing that our entire perfect week had been a lie, a prelude to my betrayal. Eli listened to my whole pathetic, rambling explanation without interrupting. When I finally ran out of words, sputtering into a guilty silence, he just nodded slowly. Not a nod of understanding, but a nod of finality, like a judge accepting a verdict. He stood up, and for a second I thought he was going to walk over to me, maybe even hold me. But instead, he walked over to the window and looked out at the streetlights below. "You know," he said, his back still to me, his voice eerily calm, "my dad cheated on my mom. For years, I watched her shrink. I watched her stop trusting her own judgment, stop trusting anyone. I promised myself I would never, ever be a part of that, not on either side." He turned around then, and his face was set like stone. "Lilia, the only thing I require, the absolute bedrock of a relationship for me, is trust. It's not a vase that you can break and glue back together. You can still see the cracks. For me, when it's broken, it's just gone. It turns into dust." Every word was a perfectly placed nail in the coffin of our relationship. There was no room for argument, no opening for apologies or promises to change. He was just stating a fact, his core principle, the one non-negotiable rule I had known about and decided to break anyway. "I'm going to go stay at my brother's place," he said, his voice devoid of any emotion. "I need some space to figure things out." But we both knew what figure things out meant. It was a polite way of saying, disappear from your life. He walked into the bedroom, and I just stood there, paralyzed. I heard the closet door open, the sound of a zipper on a duffel bag. He wasn't just leaving for the night. He was leaving, and I had handed him the reason, gift-wrapped. I had taken his one absolute boundary and pole-vaulted right over it, and now here I am, back in the present, in this silent, half-empty apartment that feels more like a tomb. For the first 2 days after he left, I was in a frenzy. I must have called him 100 times, each call going straight to voicemail. I sent a tidal wave of texts, apologies, explanations, desperate pleas, angry accusations. How can you just throw this away? Please, Eli, just talk to me. I hate you for being so cold. They all just sat there, a string of pathetic blue bubbles with no reply. Delivered, unread. I called Sasha, sobbing hysterically. I told her everything, expecting sympathy, expecting her to tell me that he was overreacting and that she would talk to him. But there was a long, uncomfortable silence on the other end of the line. When she finally spoke, her voice was flat. Lilia, what the hell were you thinking? It's Eli. You, of all people, know his history with cheating. You know that's his one hard line. You didn't just make a mistake. You took his deepest wound and poured salt all over it. What did you expect to happen? Her words were like a slap in the face. She wasn't on my side. She was on the side of reality. After I hung up, the panic really set in. I started tearing through the apartment, looking for, I don't even know what. A sign, a clue, something to prove he was coming back. That's when I found it. Tucked away in the back of his closet, inside an old shoebox where he kept old concert tickets and receipts, was a small, black moleskine notebook. It wasn't a ring box. It was so much worse. I opened it, my hands shaking. The pages were filled with his familiar, slightly messy handwriting. They were drafts, dozens of them, drafts of his proposal speech. Lilia, from the moment I met you, crossed out. My dearest Lilia, my life has been in color ever since you, scribbled over. Page after page of him trying to find the perfect words to ask me to be his wife. He wrote about my laugh, about the way I snort when I find something really funny, about his dream of waking up next to me for the rest of his life. The last entry, dated the day before my experiment, just said, forget the fancy words. Just tell her you can't imagine a single day without her. That's all that matters. Reading those words, seeing the physical proof of the beautiful future I had casually incinerated, was a pain worse than any screaming match. He hadn't just been planning to propose. He had been pouring his entire heart into it, and I had taken that heart and stomped on it for a cheap thrill. Weeks have passed, or maybe it's a month. I don't know, the days just sort of bleed into each other. Eli is a ghost. He blocked my number, blocked me on every platform. The only way I can see him is to become this pathetic digital stalker. I use Sasha's account. She doesn't know, or maybe she pretends not to look at his profile. He deleted everything. Every picture of us, every tagged photo, every memory. It's like our entire 2 years together were wiped from the server of his life. And then, out of some morbid, self-hating curiosity, I look at Dean's page. His Instagram stories are a steady stream of blurry bar photos and laughing girls whose faces I can't quite make out. He's living the exact same life he was living when I left him the first time. Nothing has changed. He's a loop, a dead end. So this is my life now, toggling between two screens. One is the ghost of a future I murdered, a man who is methodically and silently erasing me from his world. The other is a grinning, cheap reminder of the why. A meaningless, empty impulse that cost me everything. I didn't just lose Eli. I lost the person I was when I was with him, a better, happier person who was on the verge of deserving it all. And the worst part, the absolute, soul-crushing worst part, I have no one to blame but the idiot staring back at me in the reflection of my dark phone screen.